Hello, ninth and 10th graders, World History and Cultures, Chapter 15, continuation. Yesterday, or the last time we talked about Catherine de' Medici, who had tried to rule France in the name of regency for her three sons, each one of whom died, but she ended up scheming to control the country for her own selfish interest, creating a Catholic nation and maintaining that Catholicism because it gave her more power. She had more power, the Pope. But when it came to the average nobleman and noblewoman, the choice of religion was actually closer to the French Protestants. And we looked at that breakdown of the map about the north specifically was very Catholic, and the middle part and to the west was more Protestant. There was a former military leader named Admiral Gaspard de Coligny who became the leader of the French Protestants. I explained to you last time that a lot of the noblemen had walled estates, and so they kept their Protestant people within these walled cities, and that was going to make the leadership of France a little nervous because they're going to feel like they have walled cities within their country that are not actually controlled by the country itself, by the country of France. Henri of Navarre, he was the ruler of a small independent kingdom in the area of the Pyrenees Mountains between Spain and France, and he was also a leader of the French Protestants. He was also in line to the French throne through another family line. So he was a really good person to be hooked up with the current French family, to keep that line intact and to keep it more on the side of to give them a little more stability. And so the mom, de Medici, is going to work really hard to get Henri of Navarre into the family line, just kind of shore that up. And he is going to be getting married to one of Mrs. de Medici's daughters. The Guise family led the French Catholic forces. Remember Mary of Guise? Her family is going to be leading the French Catholic forces, and they're going to be working really hard to solidify Catholicism among the French. The Edict of January, passed by the Guise family, decreed that the Huguenots could worship in public if they met outside the town limits and if they admitted royal officials to inspect their services. So here you have Huguenots who are already in walled cities. They are being told now that they cannot worship in towns. They could only worship outside of town limits, and only if they admitted royal officials to inspect their services. And that included in Paris. Paris, you weren't allowed to worship within the city of Paris itself. Henry of Navarre was supposed to get married to the king's sister on St. Bartholomew's Day. Now, Henry of Navarre, he really wanted to be in line in the French line. There was a good chance he would be taking over the throne when the brother died, because they didn't have a whole lot of luck with the other brothers. And so it was arranged for him to get married. Now, part of the arrangement was that Huguenots were going to be allowed to attend the marriage of Henry of Navarre. Henry, remember, was one of their leaders, and they were allowed into Paris to witness the marriage. And Henri's purpose in inviting so many Huguenots, and the crown's purpose, was that they were going to finally get away from this whole "we're going to kill you, we hate you." He was hoping to open it up so that everybody could worship as they saw fit without violence. And so hundreds of Huguenots gathered in Paris to attend this marriage of Henri of Navarre and the king's sister. But at dawn on August 24th, 1572, Catholic forces attacked the Protestant rivals while they were still in their beds. And that violence went on to last for 3 days. So that became known as the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. Went on for 3 days, where Catholicism basically just tried to wipe out all of Protestantism within the city of Paris specifically. Admiral Coligny was one of the first murdered. Henri of Navarre escaped death only by vowing to change his religion. He was about to be killed, and he said, "What if I convert to Catholicism?" They said, "Okay, we'll let you do that instead." The massacre spread from Paris, and it went throughout France. As many as 100,000 Huguenots were murdered. They were murdered by the Catholics in their own neighborhoods, many of them. People who knew them killed them. In Rome, the Pope was so impressed by this massacre that a medal was struck to commemorate the massacre, and songs of thanksgiving were sung. As far as the Catholic Church was concerned, this was a good thing. It was something that should be remembered because this massacre defeated the enemies of the Catholic Church. Both Pope Gregory XIII and Philip II of Spain praised the King of France and expressed the hope that the massacre was the beginning of a final solution to the Protestant problem. The surviving Huguenots were aroused to furious resistance, and the warring resumed. So those who were told, not only can you not worship as you see fit, we are going to kill you if you worship a different way than what we say, they stood up and said, "No, you're not. We will defend ourselves. We will do whatever it takes to protect ourselves and our families. We should be able to worship the way we believe we should worship." Henri IV, formerly Henri of Navarre, he became the first of the Bourbon line of kings, that was his family line of French kings, and the first, what they consider the Protestant king of France, even though he converted, at least by name or in name only, before he was allowed to marry. He had to convert to Catholicism first. Now, because the people would not admit him to his own capital until that conversion was complete, he had to convert to Catholicism before he was even let into Paris, and that ended the religious wars in France, at least on the surface level. But the Edict of Nantes stipulated that Huguenots could not live in any towns or districts of France they chose. They could only practice their faith in very specifically designated towns where Protestantism had previously been the prevailing religion. So if they lived someplace where Catholicism was now the prevailing religion and had been for a long time, and there were just a few Protestants there, they had to leave their homes, their families that were Catholic. They had to leave their jobs and go and live in a town that was pre-chosen for them, that was allowed for them. Huguenots were also forbidden to teach or practice a religion outside of designated territories, and even things like books or charts or anything could be confiscated as being illegal materials. And this picture is one of the pictures that shows people's walls being torn open to look for propaganda that had to do with Protestantism. Marie de Medici was Henri IV's second wife. She tried to rule when Henri was assassinated. Is anybody shocked that he was assassinated? I'm not. The clergy forced her to call the Estates General, which is their form of parliament, but she soon dismissed it. She wanted tax money revenue for something. They said no. She said, well, in that case, just go away then. I don't need you. The Estates General would not be called again for 180 years, even though it really didn't have a lot of power. She dismissed it. It was really the only representative body that the people of France had between them and their monarchy. Okay, can we just have a minute here, because she is a beautiful woman. I mean, look at that face. She's gorgeous. But then you get down to the sleeves and you're thinking, what in the world happened here? I mean, that gorgeous dress, and then you've got these Where Waldo sleeves. I mean, can we just have a minute to just say, yikes. Those are some big stripy sleeves. Holy moly. Cardinal Richelieu. He ruled for Marie de Medici and her young son, King Louis XIII. However, Cardinal Richelieu, as the number one head honcho when it came to the Catholic Church in France at the time, he worked for his own political advancement and for the increased monarchy power of the monarchy. So he worked for increasing the power of the king and of the church. And he ruled really for Marie de Medici. She really didn't have a lot to say there. Louis XIII is going to be incredibly important, not for who he is, but for who his son is. So the Peace of Alais amended the Edict of Nantes. It allowed Huguenots to retain their civil and religious rights, but took away their fortified towns and armies. So first they were told they could only live in certain towns, and then they were told, well, you can't live in this town. You can't live in a fortified or armed town. You can't live in a place where you have walls. You have to, you can have civil rights, you can have religious rights, but we're taking away all of your protection. So that peace is going to be a very kind of scary kind of peace. The 30 Years' War occurred right around this time. It was in phases between 1618 and 1646. We've already talked about it a little bit when we talked about Germany, because this was mainly a civil war in Germany. And the whole purpose of this war was to determine whether or not people should be able to choose what religion they follow. If they should follow a state religion or the religion of the landowner on whose land they lived, or if they could choose a free religion, if they could choose whatever they wanted to. This war went on for 30 years and it ended up with basically no change. Everybody went back to whatever your landlord worships, that's how you worship. So it was mainly a civil war in Germany and the Holy Roman Empire over internal religious and political issues, but many European countries became involved. And of course, since France is being ruled by Cardinal Richelieu, they're going to be on the side of the Roman Catholic Church. Bohemia was the location of the start of the 30 Years' War. You can see the Kingdom of Bohemia on your map. You see the big German Empire in yellow. Towards the right on your map, and where it's like right almost in the middle, you see Kingdom of Poland, Kingdom of Hungary, and then Kingdom of Bohemia is right there in the middle. So that was the location of the start of the 30 Years' War. And Ferdinand II was the Bohemian king who was a member of the powerful Habsburg royal family and ardent Romanist. He was Catholic all the way. He was deposed and a Protestant noble gained the throne, and that's going to cause a big upset. Christian IV was the Lutheran king of Denmark. The German Protestants asked for his assistance in the war. They needed all the assistance they could get, so they chose every Protestant leader they could get their hands on. This is his crown, by the way. It's still in existence. It's in museums. Notice the filigree work, the pearls. There should be some other gemstones on there, a little smaller. The red cap that's in the middle or inside the crown is there specifically to keep the king's head or the queen's head from being cut by the metal or being, because it's a really heavy, wearing that much metal on your head, it kind of pushes into your skull. And so there's a cloth cap, usually trimmed in fur underneath, that they wear underneath, and that's also called a diadem. A diadem is also a very thin fillet of gold or silver that's worn right around the forehead. Okay. Count of Tilly and Albrecht Wallenstein. These were Ferdinand's best generals. They won several crushing victories over the Danes and forced them out of the war. So it looks like things are going well, really, for the 30 Years' War while these guys are fighting. Gustavus Adolphus, he was the great Luther warrior king of Sweden, and his brilliant leadership turned the tide of the war, defeating General Tilly's army in 1631. I don't know if he's just got really, really short legs or if it's just a mistake of the artist, but everything looks really short in this picture. I'm not sure if he was trying to fill a specific space, but yeah, if it looks odd to you, it's because it is. It's a little odd. I know I'm going through the slides really fast, so if you need to rewind and get the notes, go ahead and do so. We have that advantage now. I can move a little faster through this material than we can in the classroom when I'm waiting for people to finish up. So you take your time, do it at your own pace. The Battle of Lutzen. This was the site of the Swede defeat of Wallenstein's mercenaries. Gustavus was killed. Here is a picture of him dying. Obviously a very kind of romantic picture where he is, being kind of thrown over, or you can see the horses. It's really a crowded picture, but yet so beautifully painted. You get a lot of emotion here. And that's what romantic pictures are all about. They're about the emotion, not about love. Romance, different, because romance meaning Roman. Okay, the Peace of Westphalia was signed in 1648, and that ended the 30 Years' War, the Peace of Westphalia. The terms of the treaty included Protestant princes of Germany regained their lost territories and authority, and the ruler of each German territory retained the power to decide the official state religion for his domain. That means if your landlord is Catholic, then you, as a renter, are also Catholic. If you are living on the landlord's land, you are the landlord's religion. That's what a state religion is. If you say, well, you know what, I may have to live with a Catholic landlord, but I don't personally feel Catholic, you still have to pay tithe to the Catholic Church. That was the whole point of that. You had to pay your tithe to whatever church your landlord belonged to. Calvinism acquired legal status for the first time in the Holy Roman Empire, along with Romanism, that's Catholicism, and Lutheranism, that was Protestantism as seen by Luther. The Holy Roman Empire lost its territory in the north to Sweden and in the south to France. So they became much, much smaller, and France got a piece of property. Switzerland and the Netherlands were officially recognized as independent countries for the first time. So that was good for them. When it came to the religious practices, we call that status quo antebellum, or the same position before the war. Same position as before the war. Hey, that's it for chapter 15. That's pretty exciting. So we can get on to chapter 16 now. I know, it's so exciting. Woo! So don't forget to work on your homework for chapter 15. You don't have to turn it in right away, but it's a good idea to keep up with it. And you know what? I think we're actually going to have to stop right there because I don't have chapter 16 up and ready for you. So we'll stop right there. Today, I'll give you guys a little extra time to work on your homework. I know we're stopping really early today. That's okay. We'll pick up with chapter 16 next time. But work on your homework, do a little bit of time. Don't forget to help out around the house. It's really important. And I will talk to you later. Have a good night.